Data science view provides the configuration of all the resources used to define any data science workloads, as well as to track and manage those workloads. So I'm going to use this repo, the examples in this repo, which are publicly available. They're available at One Convergence DKube examples. The first one I'm going to walk through is a simple MNIST workflow. And the idea is to illustrate the different resources to create the workloads. So the first thing, I'm going to copy this URL. The core datasets and model repos are the main resources that are used for the definition of a workload, as well as resources used to track the execution of these workloads. So I'm going to create a code repo, call it DKube examples. Submit the URL. Provide support for any Git providers such as GitHub, Bitbucket, or even any private Git repos. If the repo is private repo, you could enter your credentials by clicking on this private. So I'm going to add this. And the next step is to create a data set, just like code. This data set repo tracks a particular data set that's used for the execution of any workload. So I'm going to call it MNIST here. Datasets are of two types. Datasets where data is downloaded onto DKube, or data that can be used remotely from the source. So if data is downloaded onto DKube versions the data using DVS. And if data is remote, you would choose versioning to be none, in which case DKube keeps the metadata for the data being used and might link it to the versioning at the source. So for DVS, data sources could be Git, S3, GCS, or other. And if you choose none, there are different sources that are supported, Kubernetes volumes, NFS, S3, Redshift, and so on. So I'm going to use DVS for today's demonstration. So choose other here. And the data in this case is downloaded from S3, but using URL HTTP interface. So data could also be uploaded from your local machine. So I'm going to add this data set. And just like data set keeps track of all the files that are part of the data, a model keeps track of all the model files. So I'm going to call it MNIST again here. In this case, it's going to be an empty model repo that I'm going to create, where the contents of the repo are generated by the training run that define and run in a few minutes. So I create the model repo here. Model could also come from a particular source in case we're going to use it for transfer workloads that involve transfer learning. So the model is ready, the data should also be ready, and the code is ready at this point.